Hello, and welcome to the Viberarian Show. My name is Joelle, and I am the Viberarian, and I am here to elevate, enlighten, and empower you with information that I hope that you will find helpful. I am of the belief that knowledge is power, and so every Thursday evening I pick a topic and invite people to talk about it with me on the radio. And this week our topic is going to be about the nature of dreams and dream symbolism. Now, you can call in at 646-668-8988. If you would like to make a comment or have a question, then press 1, and I'll see that you're there and get you on as soon as I can. I also have a community on Facebook called the Good Vibe Tribe, where we are gathered together to share information with each other. You can find it at the Viberarian. That's V-I-B-E as in energy, Rarian. And you can certainly like my page, become a fan, become involved, and also you can connect with me on Instagram and Twitter at the Viberarian. So each week I'm here on Thursday nights for about an hour, and we get to talk about all things that I find interesting and curious. I kind of like to think of it as a Indiana Jones kind of exploration because I love to examine the mystery of things that sometimes we don't necessarily know so much about. And I've always been a fan of shows like The X-Files, so I love being able to do this. And I was thinking about the topics. The last few weeks we have talked about astral projection, astral travel, the astral realms. We've talked about lucid dreaming and strategies for doing that, as well as we had a conversation last week about sleep paralysis, which was quite interesting. And so this week I wanted to continue that thread and discussion, and we are talking about dreams. So I have a guest panelist this evening. I'm so excited to have her on the show. I'm welcoming Kelly Lynn Prime of Fitness for the Soul with Kelly Lynn Prime. Kelly, welcome to the Viberarian Show.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. You know, we were talking the other day, and you said, I love dreams. And I was reading through your bios and things, and you have a special kind of, I guess you would call it, knack and skill for dream interpretation. Would you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, as far as dreams and dream interpretation, it's not something that I have studied per se. It's something that, I would have friends they would be like, man, I had the weirdest dream. I'm like, let me hear about it. Like, what was your dream about? And I would just, in listening to their dreams, I would be able to just naturally glean insight and help them look at their dreams in a different way and in a way that makes sense. Because I don't know about you, but I have really kind of wackadocious dreams. They're super duper weird. Picking up pennies, riding a skateboard down a dirt road. What the hell does that mean? So for me personally, I am able, if I really slow my brain down and write about the things that happen in dreams for myself personally, I usually am able to be like, oh, that means this and this means that, and so I have to go through that process for myself. But when I'm working with other people, hearing the dreams, I'm really able to just provide some insight as to what the dream could mean. And I love working with people who don't want me to just give them all the answers. I love to have a dialogue and, okay, well, what does this mean to you? And then really have it be a nice interplay and interchange of energy.
Oh, yes. I like to chop it up about stuff. I don't want to just talk one way. I want to have a two-way discussion. And I think you and I are very similar because people would always ask me, what do you think about this? And I didn't feel like I had any, special expertise back previously. I'll say that before. But, it did start to make sense for me, more so other people's than my own, you know what I'm saying? And maybe I was just getting a little too much up in their business and thought I was being more helpful. But people did come back to me over and over again, and we would talk dream talk. Now, I will say that in my later years now, my dream space is much different than what I was recognizing it. Maybe it was like this all along, but now I have definite higher guidance. I have precognition in my dreams. I have past life visions that come up in my dreams that show me how I was connected to people. So it's not just like your random, I dream of. Sometimes it's the random dreams that we can kind of analyze, but other times it's very specific, and that's kind of new for me. I'm still kind of unpacking all of that with understanding my dreams. Now, do you dream and keep a dream journal?
If I was a really great dream interpreter, I would say, oh, my God, yes, I write down my dreams every night. No, I don't do that. I do it when... I don't know. I guess when I'm moved to do it is when I do it. I have very a lot of times there's people who I know in my dreams, but maybe somebody that I know like from high school, and I don't really have a lot of contact with people from where I grew. I grew up in a really small town in Michigan. So I live in Atlanta now, and I don't have a lot of contact with, people from my past, but it always makes me wonder what's going on with certain people when I dream about them, because if someone is in my dream, that I know, it's usually something like very specific and very, very vivid with that person happening. Yeah.
And you don't ever get a chance to corroborate whether that really did happen or not.
Yeah, not really. Animals come into my dreams a lot. I'm very, very connected to animal spirits. Now, here's something that's really interesting. I have a cat. She's part Siamese and part tabby, and she was I can't even say that she was a rescue. She was a stray cat that lived at the apartment complex where I live, and she hissed at me the first time she saw me, so that's how our relationship started, and I was like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. She has like big blue eyes. She's so pretty. But she hissed at me and ran away, and I was like, oh, okay, so that's going to be our relationship. Cool. Needless to say, she sleeps with me every night now. So that's how that relationship developed. But my cat will appear in my dreams, and in real life, she is the quintessential scaredy cat. In my dreams, oh my God, she is amazing. She protects me. She has killed snakes. She's killed alligators. She's like my ride or die chick in my dreams. So she's like my little protector guide. It's really awesome.
That's pretty cool. I don't have any like animal familiars in my dream time space. I have had periods of time where I can recall having more nightmare type animal encounters, right? So snakes, and snakes being lots of snakes, little snakes all over, and I have a very kind of snake phobia kind of way in real life, so I don't necessarily like when they come in the dream space, but at one point, maybe 10, 15...
Let's talk about snakes for a minute. Snakes.
Well, I was going to say,
knowing what I know about you, and you having partaken in the grandmother medicine, grandmother shows up as a snake.
Yes.
So that's something to think about. And another aspect is that Kundalini energy is represented by the snake. So those two things come to me in relation to you and snakes when you mention them.
I agree.
With there being so many snakes and all the different varieties, that leads me. Was there a color? Do you remember a color, a prominent color?
Well, I was going to say at the time, I don't remember color, but I do remember looking at the dream dictionaries because I had two kinds, one with one snake and one with lots of little snakes. And the definitions that kind of resonated with me, one was that there were possible friendships with gossip and backbiting and kind of not good behavior in them. And the other was having to do with sexual energy, being uncomfortable with sexual energy. And I have to say that at both different times, those definitions actually did resonate. And I did look at my friend group that I was running with at the time and did discover some things and made some changes. And then, of course, my ex-husband and I ultimately divorced. So now my present understanding of snakes and dreams, I think if they did visit me, would be completely different because I have seen that the green snake last year came in my dream while I was in Mexico, and I was having my mother medicine experiences at the time. So there was like a shift. I was not scared in my more present dreams, but 15 years ago, oh my God, it was like a nightmare.
Now here's my take on nightmares. People tend to they say, "Oh my God, I had a nightmare. It was horrible. You know, I was so scared." Yada yada yada. Well, Spirit is speaking to us all the time, and sometimes we're getting messages. However, we're not registering the message, or we're ignoring the message, or not paying enough attention to what the signs and symbols are in our life. The Spirit is guiding us all the time, guiding us to the path of our perfect self. So when Spirit is speaking and we miss the whisper, and then Spirit speaks a little louder, and then Spirit speaks a little louder, Spirit is trying to get your freaking attention with a nightmare. There's something because when you wake up from a nightmare, you remember that shit.
You certainly do.
Nightmares are simply, they're not meant, well, maybe they are meant to scare you to a certain degree, but it's not meant for you to stay in that state of fear. It's meant for you to look at what's really happening in that dream and pay attention. There's a message for you.
Well, you know, I remember I was not allowed to watch horror movies growing up. So, of course, I always wanted to sneak over to my friend's house to watch horror movies, and then I usually wound up getting myself scared silly by what I saw. And I remember when Nightmare on Elm Street came out. I mean, and I'm talking about my age now. I'm 45 and happy about it. And when Freddy Krueger came out and they said in that dream, in that movie, if you die in your dreams, you die in real life. Make sure you don't fall. You know, I was terrified after that. And so my experience of dream space until I realized, okay, you can be lucid in your dreams, and instead of running away from the thing that is chasing you, you can start to direct, the story from within it. I started learning tools and calm down my overactive imagination that was freaking out about, well, if I'm falling in a dream, I got to wake up before I hit the ground. I got to wake up, kind of panic. And I've learned to manage that better now. But I hope I don't have a dream that says, you think you can manage it. You know what I'm saying? But falling, running, being chased, those are things that people commonly dream about.
Yeah. To me, when you talk about falling, I think of surrender. Like what do you need to surrender to in your life? Mm-hmm. I mean, I went skydiving earlier this year in January, and it was an amazing experience. And I was very, very calm going up. As soon as we left the plane, I was like, oh my God, I can't breathe. And then I was like, okay, yes, you can breathe. Take a breath. And then I was like, it was kind of like, I've done ayahuasca many times as well, and there's always a point where I have drank the medicine, and there's a point where I'm like, it's starting to kick in, and I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck did you just do? Like, what did you do? Like, really? You're going to do this again? So I had that moment, and with skydiving, it happens quick. So I was like, oh my God, I can't breathe. Oh my God, I'm never doing this again. It sucks. I'm cold. Blah. I had all of that going through my mind. And then my friend actually took me, and he was actually filming. My friend filmed skydiving. Mm. So the next thing I know, Howie is in my face, and I'm like, oh my God, you are so okay. You are so okay. And then when the chute came out, it was like the ultimate surrender. Like I just surrendered to the fall, and it was such a beautiful experience. So to me, falling is like that. Falling in a dream is like, okay, what are you fighting? What would happen if you surrender?
Now, did you ever have any?
What was the other thing that you mentioned?
Well, I was wondering, did you ever have any dreams or nightmares about falling in the past that you were kind of had in mind when you were kind of conquering that in the 3D sense by having this experience of skydiving?
Not that I recall. I'm sure that I have had. I mean, I have had the feeling of falling. I think everybody has that moment where you kind of like falling asleep, and it feels like you're falling, and you kind of like catch yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, I have heard that is when we go to sleep, we leave our body. So I've heard that kind of knee-jerk reaction and the feeling of falling that kind of jars you awake is your body coming, or your spirit coming back into your body kind of like abruptly, kind of like a little crash landing.
Well, I know I try to wake, I do have, when I've been in places of nightmares, I can honestly say I don't necessarily have what I feel are nightmares now. Maybe it's because my perspective has shifted and how I process it. But when I look back over my life, I can say that fear of heights, being on tall buildings and balconies and falling down from stories and stories, realizing that something bad is about to happen has been a prevalent one. Snakes have, again, being and I grew up in the Midwest in like rural areas, so snakes were like a real thing. So I think part of my nightmare was the fact that that was happening too, in my real space, and the typical kid kind of things, now being chased by something or running from something. Now I definitely know when that happens. Is that, you do need to stand and stop and look and see what you might be running from or feeling is pursuing you that you're trying to get away from. I don't take that one literally so much anymore. I do wake up and say, okay, do I feel like something is, coming my way that I need to get away from, and what could it be? I take a pause now, whereas before I didn't take a pause. I would just wake up and be screaming and clutching at the bed sheets, trying to wake myself up out of this terrible thing that was about to happen,
Uh-huh. Now, energetically speaking, because you had mentioned the horror movies, energetically speaking, and I talk about this a little bit on social media. We have become so desensitized to, something tragic is happening, and what's the first thing that people do? Do they offer to help?
No. Mm-hmm.
No, they get their phone out and they want to film it. So we have become this voyeuristic society where we want to get everything on camera. It's a blessing and a curse, and the curse is that there's some things that we cannot unsee. They leave an energetic imprint in our physical body, and they leave imprints in our body as if we are experiencing the violence, just the disempowering things, people fighting, just all kinds of tragic things that we can't see, we can't unsee energetically. So I don't know about you, but I choose to be very mindful of what I am watching as far as like movies, shows, things like that. I have not had a television set in my home for 7 years. So there came a point where I was like, I do not want this. It's called television programming for a reason. I do not wish to have the advertising and the messaging and all of that's in the television programming. Like, I am too much of an empath it was time to cut it off. It was time to take my own energy and my own power back.
Well, I can remember one time when I was still married, and there was some Friday night show on. It was something about a guy who was like a exorcist or something, and he would go around, and the whole plot was about these devilish demons trying to possess people, et cetera, et cetera. And my ex-husband liked to watch it, and one day he caught me up in an episode, and that night I know that I was feeling like a spirit was about to come in me in the dream plot that was happening in my head. I was in one of the TV episodes, and I had to wake myself up, and I let out a blood-curdling scream to get myself awake, and I did one of those where you sit straight up in the bed, just, ah! And he was a police officer, so he didn't take too kindly to being woken up in the middle of the night with some panic, like, what in the world is going on? And it took me, even sitting up, a few seconds to come to full awakeness. I was not yet awake. And he was like, that's it. That's it. We're not watching that anymore. We're not turning that on anymore. I get it. I'll never ask you to watch that again, because I lost it, and I don't watch scary movies for a reason. Now, I will say that I do have dreams now that sometimes feature zombies, but I do feel like that is representative of kind of the way that I view certain mindless behaviors that we as society do. So I do think it's symbolic, but I never watch Walking Dead or anything like that because my imagination is too vivid. And I believe if I am fortunate enough never to see somebody get decapitated, gutted, or gored, then why would I want to watch a realistic recreation of somebody getting decapitated, gutted, and gored? It just doesn't make sense to me, and I definitely don't want to bring that to my dreams at all.
Going back to, like, Nightmare on Elm Street, I feel like that was the beginning of horror movies, like, becoming really extreme. I can't even, it's been so long since I've seen any horror movies, but I can only imagine the way that the genre has evolved. I'm sure that things are very, very, very realistic, and that is disturbing to me.
Absolutely. I mean, if there really is, if between dreams and waking is just our perception of it, but it's really not anything other than what our brain space and functioning is doing 24/7, it's just we switch our perspective of it. I definitely, and especially if you believe that you create your own reality, that your thoughts are
Absolutely.
things and they become manifestation, I definitely think that one should be more careful about, or at least mindful about what it is that you do, I am not a journaler myself because I'm kind of bad at habitual behaviors, but I have journaled when I've had a purpose. Like if I know that I'm receiving a night after night of vivid dream work, then I will go ahead and journal it. I don't do good with writing and journaling. I think I still have a page in my journal where I woke up tonight and tried to write what I had just dreamed. And you can see the ink pen, the line just slides right on off the page. And I couldn't even make out the legible letters because I was not even awake enough to actually functionally write. So what I started doing is recording memos to myself on my phone. I might sound like a bullfrog, but I can at least capture things, especially if I feel it's a really important and symbolic dream and not just the random kind of subconscious processing that happens at nighttime.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Now, they say that if you dream, I know that I have had, like they say, dreams and phobias can also connect you to your past life experiences. And I can say I never really thought about the past life connection, but I always remember that the very first dreams that I had as a child was a nightmare-type dream that I can remember having. I had to be maybe kindergarten, first grade, and I can remember vividly that I would have these dreams of swimming, that I was in this big kind of ocean like you would see in the kids' dinosaur books, like this big primordial sea, and I would be swimming as fast as I can because something was chasing me. And I can remember then all of a sudden running into a chain link fence and trying to kind of like shimmy up the chain link fence. I couldn't tell what form I was in. I just remember the water was dark and murky and it was endless, and I was trying to get away. And I would have this dream. I probably had it till I was like third or fourth grade at different times. I shoved away all my...
Can I share with you what I'm seeing for this one?
Sure.
When you said I could not tell what form I was in, I immediately saw you as a mermaid. And I feel like the chain link fence was actually like a fishing net, and that there were people trying to capture you.
You are spot on, as they say across the pond, because just 2 years ago I had a session with Paula Gore. She's been on this show a couple of times, and she's a shamanistic healer, and she did a session where she went in to journey through my third eye to look at my past lives to see where I had experienced trauma that might be preventing me from being all that I could be in this lifetime. And she immediately went back in. She was like, you were in a mermaid form. And I had been, like, feeling like I was a mermaid, like I had little memorabilia around in my space and was definitely resonating with it. But she said, you and your group were here to try to help put light on the planet, and you were rounded up and slaughtered. And she said, do you feel pain on your right side? Now, mind you, she had not seen me more than 15 minutes at that point in time, but I do have somewhat of a painful, constant area on my right side, and I have a birthmark on my rib cage on my right side. And she said, well, if you have pain there because that's where you were gutted. They gutted you like they gutted you like a fish. And
wow.
As soon as she said that, I was like, holy shit, you know what I'm saying? Because it connected a dot for me from that dream that I, always remembered vividly, but never really had that dream later in life. But for me, that was very much a knowing that happened for me that clicked into place that said, yes, this dream was from that. And I have had several other subsequent present dreams that I have realized like a day or two after the fact whose past life I was seeing the story of, and it was telling me how I was connected to people. I mean, it's
fascinating.
It's been kind of interesting. That's when I say my dream space has changed a lot. It's shifted a lot from the typical snakes in a plane kind of, get your life together kind of dreams. And, they say that if you fell, if you dream of falling, if you dream of being shot, that those could actually be you and whatever life you were living showing you a snippet of your experience in that lifetime. And I think that's just awesome if that happens, especially if you can remember the dream. I think it's so awesome to see right in on that mermaid, mermaid energy as well, because that's twice now, so it's very confirming for me in terms of my personal journey and understanding of myself. I think that many people, there's a lot of information out there now that we're in the Google age, and I do think there are some really, really good dream dictionaries and dream kind of interpretation and symbols. There's lots of things about animal symbolism. If an animal appears in your dream, that, especially if you've got a repetitive animal, that like your animal familiar, that's so much like how you hear shamans who really are working with animal totems and animal energy. That's really cool to me. I'm not a cat person, but I mean, each their own. But they say the cats are like the guard. They like move in and out of the underworld, right? In terms of how the Egyptians
they see through the veil.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they say is that a cat is able to see through the veil, so they see everything. And I've seen my cat like watch seemingly nothing go across the room. Like, well, what are you looking at?
I've seen YouTube videos where the cat, like the orbs of energy that you can't see at the time, but they'll show up on video, but the cats are following those orbs with their eyes. There's whole YouTube channels dedicated to just that, is the cat seeing a ghost? and they look and see that there is some kind of extra energy, that the cats are not just looking at dust, they're looking at something else,
Now, I have a lot of fairy energy, and I you know how have you ever seen cats? They kind of look like they're going crazy, where they're like looking around and they're they're kind of like in attack mode, but seemingly there's nothing there. I have had to tell the fairies, I'm like, leave my freaking cat alone. Like, she's not your plaything to torture. Like, that's
you're so much
right
fun. Well, it's interesting because you always see cats in stories that are dealing with supernatural. They've always kind of known to have an otherworldly wisdom and to be almost like cunning and smart, the Cheshire Cat of Alice in Wonderland, so they kind of have an embodiment of their own. Even, who is it, Bast in Egyptian mythology. I hate to use the word mythology, but in the pantheon of Egyptian gods and goddesses, and I believe that it was some kind of transition between two worlds that the cats are conveying. So you find a lot of them mummified with the pharaohs and also statues of them as well. Now, the theory that we are is in a waking dream just in general, and that we are the product of what our consciousness is creating as the waking dream time, and that when we pass from this human form, then we are awakening from a dream, and that's what it will seem like to our soul selves on the other side of the veil. That theory fascinates me, from a fundamental level.
Man, I can't say that I had a lot of thought about that possibility until I saw the movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio.
You haven't seen that yet.
God. Okay, that's your homework. You have to watch that, and then we have to have a discussion.
Okay, no spoilers. No, we'll have to come back and do it. We'll come back and do an episode on Inception, because I have a couple other friends who've been asking me, like, man, you got to see. They're saying the same thing you do. You got to see that. So it must be very interesting.
Amazing.
The whole idea that if you look at imagination versus dreams, it almost becomes tricky, because they say dream big. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. So when we sit in our time of creativity and we start to speculate and imagine and envision, I think that is the cousin of dreaming, because we're thinking of things like, was it Da Vinci and his whirligigs and all the things, Tesla, all their drawings and musings. Daydreaming, they say, can be a very effective thing if you're trying to kind of move yourself somewhere different. Then you just sit down and allow your mind to wander awake for a couple of hours without any specific purpose, but allowing whatever sparks into your creative space to then stick with you when you're done daydreaming, and figure out what you can use out of that dream then, because there will be a spark of something that is for you. And I think that it happens both awake and asleep, because I think Tesla said he saw his things in a dream, and he woke up and scrambled down the equations that he saw in his head because he remembered them from his dreams.
That's really interesting, because I do remember having dreams where I knew I was there was like a very complex level of information that was being shown to me, but when I wake up, it's gone. So that's really interesting.
Well, the thing is, it may be gone from our consciousness as we know it, but who knows what your soul and energetic self actually did with that information.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that I definitely will be having an episode about the medicine path, because I think that things like ayahuasca and sapo and peyote, those things that they allow those parts of the brain that are dormant or turned off or put on the back burner while we're awake and in our normal, what we call mental consciousness. They do the same kind of thing that being asleep and allowing that kind of egoic chitter-chatter to cease, it opens up so much of our brain. And the medicine, I think, does that to like the nth degree. So I definitely will be having a show about that in the future, and we'll have you back. I hope to have some of my friends from Mexico join me on that conversation, because there's quite a lot of work that people are doing outside of the United States, especially down the medicine path, you know. And I know that there are ways that you can stimulate the dream part of the brain. There are all kinds of tools on YouTube, binaural beats and isochronic tones and intention setting hypnosis tracks and solfeggio tones that will help you facilitate if you're interested in doing dream work. You know, I always caution people to make sure you read the comments that people are making and look to see how many thumbs up and thumbs down are happening. And if you don't feel comfortable when you're embarking on one of those kind of lucid dream hypnosis kind of things, then stop listening to it right away. Don't keep pushing through. But you really can kind of walk yourself down the path of meaningful dream exploration if you choose to.
Absolutely. And I think one of the simplest ways to begin exploring is to don't be like us, do a dream journal. And it's as simple as setting an intention when you go to sleep, that as soon as you wake up that you're going to, one, remember your dream, and then you write it down, everything that you can remember.
Yes, the intention setting is it really works. I didn't think it would, maybe 4 or 5 years ago before I was where I am now in my journey, but I really didn't think that it was going to do anything. And maybe the first night it didn't, but, I kept setting the intention, and next thing I know, I was like, oh, wow, okay, that was a lot, you know what I mean? And next thing I knew, I was remembering it. So that really is like a key to turn on the light to the discipline of self-examination. And that's true for any kind of examination. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you want to do meditation, you just got to be disciplined. If you want to expand and learn yoga, you got to be everything is about, if you really want to go there, then you have to make a commitment to go there. And I think that's a valuable space.
They're all called practices. It's called a practice for a reason. A yoga practice, a meditation practice, a dream practice. It means that you're always beginning again.
Right. Well, I am going to share another dream that I had that was so fascinating. So I was in Mexico, and in the dream, I dreamed that there was a lady standing in front of me, and I was clearly her good friend. We were connected, and we were, I think, going to her wedding rehearsal was what I felt like. And I could see her face and everything. She kind of looked like Eva, like a like a lady in flamenco in Spain or something like that. Her hair was kind of swooped over to the side in the front and then like a bun in the back, kind of elegant, beautiful young lady. And I would switch from my perspective to being in her eyes throughout the whole dream. So her fiancé in the dream was away, and so his best friend was standing in for him. And so we started the rehearsal, but at some point the fiancé came in and he thought that she had betrayed him. So he was beginning to go find his gun so that he could shoot her. And I knew we needed to run. I knew we all needed to get away. I guess it was kind of like in Kill Bill. I know that just came to mind. But so we were all running through this building over and over again, and I would be her sometimes running, and I would be myself sometimes running. And he had this long rifle and was chasing us. And I knew that we were ultimately not going to be successful because I had heard like a newscaster say, and they were all shot. So I knew, even though I was running at the time, that it was somewhat futile. And at one point, I was standing beside her, and she was on this balcony, and she looked at me and said, I can't run anymore. I can't take this. And she turned around and leapt off the balcony. And in that split second, I switched to a different perspective. I was underneath these benches that were in front of where she landed. I actually saw her land, but she was not dead yet. So I grabbed her hand and was trying to pull her under the bench to hide her, but I heard his footsteps coming, and I knew that he was about to find us, and I woke up at that time. Now, while in Mexico, I was with a lovely friend of mine who was from Belgium. And I told her about this dream, and it was like I knew as I was talking to her, because she was having challenges and issues, and she did have her ex-husband in real life had killed himself. And he had called her to come to the hotel the night that he killed himself because he said he wanted to talk to her. But they had been divorced for some time, and she knew that he was unstable, so she did not go. She said, I don't know what it is, Joe. I don't know why I didn't go, but just something told me not to go. And so when I had this dream and I woke up the next day, I said, oh, my God, I think I dreamed about Vivian's past life. And she was helping me a lot while I was in Mexico. She was like a dear support for me that I could not have lived there successfully without her assistance. And I felt like me trying to help her as her friend in that scenario, she was now coming back to help me in this lifetime, and I was being shown the dream as a way to let me see what our connection was. And as I was talking with her, telling her the dream, her face got pale, and she said, Joelle, when I was young, my family had an apartment in Brussels, and I never could go near the balcony. I was always afraid of the balcony because when I would get near it, I would feel like I was supposed to jump.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. She was like, wow. I was like, wow. But I believe that dream was showing me a past life that our paths had crossed, and that because I was clearly trying to help her, I remember being afraid for her and trying to help her, and we were running together. I believe that is why she was in Mexico and our paths crossed, because then she helped me, and the fact that something in her told her not to go to the hotel room with her ex-husband, she felt guilty about it afterwards because she still loved him, but they had not been together. But the fact that she said, I don't know why I didn't go because I would meet him at different times, but something told me not to go. And I said, she knew, I told her, I said, you knew this because your soul was like, we've been here before. We've learned whatever lesson that was in this dynamic, and we are preserving ourselves and staying out of harm's way. So
Absolutely.
that's the kind of crazy, like, dreams that I receive, and I always tell my friend circle when I have these dreams before I really even understand what they are, and I audio journal them just to kind of capture them as well, because I never know until the pieces of the puzzle fall in place to tell me, oh, that's what that was. That's what that, and I can't explain it logically, but I can feel it,
Yeah. Well, as soon as you started talking about the betrayal, I knew it was past life, because I have a past life with an ex that I saw. It wasn't a dream; it was in a vision. However, we had been together before. He was some sort of king or emperor, some man of power, and I was his mistress, and he got me pregnant, but he believed that I had betrayed him and that I wasn't pregnant by him, that I was pregnant by someone else, and he had me and the child killed. What's really interesting, though, is that vision or that dream shifted in a meditation. So in the original vision, I ended up being killed. Me and the child ended up being killed very violently. And then it was when I was in a psychic development course. We were meditating, and I saw the scenario start, but it totally shifted. One of the knights that was supposed to carry out the killing me decided that he was actually going to rescue me, and he gave me like this very specific set of directions. He's like, you're going to have to cut off all your hair. I'm going to mix your hair with pig's blood, so it looks like, I really killed you. But he took me out into this cottage in the woods, and I ended up having a son, and he actually came back for me and helped me raise my son. So it was like the whole scenario, it changed. So that I thought that was really interesting when that happened.
That's interesting. So, and was it some time apart between the dream and then the shift?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting. I think I'm just fascinated by, the whole realm of what we do in that time when our primary logical brain goes dormant and chills the hell out for a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We have a caller on the line that wants to talk about their dream. Hello, welcome to the Viberarian Show.
Hey, hi, how are you? Thank you so much for accepting my call. Yes, I was, as you both were sharing your dreams, I was thinking about mine and seeing how there was different connections. My most recent dream was the one that still has me kind of trippy, but, just knowing that pay attention to your dreams. They're telling you something. A couple months ago, I had a dream. Well, I had a succession of dreams that involved snakes. Every time I went to sleep, closed my eyes, I would see snakes just lining my pathway or, sitting up on ledges and different. So I got in the habit of, looking down, always looking down at my footsteps to make sure I didn't step on anything or I missed anything, because I just naturally thought, well, maybe that was my way of warning me that maybe I was in peril. So about for 30 days now, I continued to have these dreams. On the 30th day, I woke up and I was I was in a dream, and I walked out my front door, and I knew I had to go to work. And I walked out my front door, and I know how my house is made. And for some reason, I walked to the right instead of the left that would be towards my car. And at the time, the whole lawn was covered in these black coiled snakes. And I had seen them so many times in my dreams. They were never aggressive. They were just laying there kind of really chilling out, not even paying attention to me. So this, but it didn't stop me from being afraid. So this particular morning, when I went out there and I looked at them, I said, I felt the fear grip me a minute. And then the second was, do you remember what you read about the significance of the snake and that you shouldn't fear it? So I said, okay. And I realized they were black snakes, so I felt a little bit okay because I paid attention to they weren't paying attention to me. So I started walking, and through the bushes, I could see something raising up, but I couldn't figure. Lo and behold, as I hit the corner, this huge gray, stone-colored snake, just as I recognized it kind of sprang at me and bit at my arm. Now, I do remember not having a coat on when I walked out the door in the dream, but all of a sudden I had a coat on, and the snake kept biting at my shoulder to the point where I could physically, as I was starting to wake up, physically feeling my arm jumping, as the snake was trying to get through the fabric of my coat. And instead of me just like grabbing it and throwing the snake away, I kind of walked to the left to look for help. Crazy. This is, I don't know what this means. It's been 30 days. God, what does this mean? This has got to end. I feel like I'm going crazy. I go to work, but it's caused me to start looking at legs to make sure I don't step on a snake, see a snake, anything. So I'm out, having a conversation with some coworkers, and I see one of the buses. It's about one of those 16-passenger buses you see from the airport coming. I see it coming up the hill, and we're talking, and I was thinking, wow, that bus is going kind of fast, and there's a sharp turn where we kind of stand and congregate and talk, and I was just thinking, wow, he's going to have to hit the brakes soon, or he's going to have trouble with this little, this sharp angle. A friend of mine that's standing in front of me, he's talking, we're laughing and joking, he's standing right on the edge. As the bus came up, I looked at the ledge, and the ledge was the same color as the snake that bit me. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Just as the bus came around it, and in a flash second, the dream show, it was almost like I had the vision right there that it was going to come in too fast, and it was going to clip the man that was standing in front of me. And this was all about this whole time. So as I see the bus and I see it clip the cement little railing thing, I reach out and just again, it seemed like time slowed down as I said no. And I grabbed the guy by his chest and just gently pulled him to me. And just in speaking no, it seemed like the universe gave me enough time to move him. And just as I was moving him, the guy was hitting the second pillar. And I knew then, the whole thing as far as the bite, I could see me getting sprayed with blood and this man being dragged up underneath the bus. And I was like, we were all, maybe about 4 or 5 of us, we were all standing there shocked like, oh, my God, you know what I mean? You saved his life. Finally somebody, found their voice like, you saved his life. And for me, it took me back to those 30 days of dreaming about snakes, looking at the landscape and paying attention to the landscape that allowed me to see that ledge, and that guy was going to hit, that bus was going to hit that ledge, and to be able to save, a man's life. And it was like, again, one of those moments where you go, wow, you never know the significance of your dream. Again, for me, it was recognizing, but also working through it to understand the meanings of symbols. You know, for me, the snake was something so deadly, and it took 30 days, and that was the part that killed me. It took me 30 days to figure out that not one of those snakes, the black snakes, were there to hurt me. They were there to, like, kind of give me that warning, like, we need you to pay attention. But it was the snake that was discolored. That was the one that they were, again, to me, that they were warning, like, I want you to pay attention. So, you know, again, you know, and I can recite several dreams, even premonitions that I thought were dreams, only to walk up into the situation and go, wait a minute, I dreamed this last night in full color. I don't exactly understand what this means, but, you know, it's almost like you're frozen in place, like, okay, am I in a dream right now, or is this a repeat of what I, you know, dreamt last night? So I think that we need to really start to push paying attention to your dreams. You know what I mean? You never actually know, and, you know, you can miss warnings. You know, to me, I think that the ancestors speak through your dreams also. Symbolism is very, very important. And because through time and history, symbolism has changed, we are so uneducated on understanding just our connections with the universe that it does talk to us through dreams. Do have visions, you know what I mean? Big Mama does warn us, you know, when she's sitting in the kitchen and you have that dream and she tells you don't go there. And then something happens later that night and it is reminding you of it. You know, again, people like to talk about mysticism and, oh, that's not, you know, that's walking the edge. But I think it's just so important, just from my experiences in my dreams and my visions, to be able to openly talk about it, but also to understand what you're dreaming about and how it could change your perception in the situations that you're currently going through.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a really really profound experience that you had. And I was really seeing, you described it very, very vividly. And as you were talking about how, you know, you pulled him out of the way, I was seeing the snake bite as, you know, like clipping his shoulder, and I was like, I see it. And
I did too.
The black snake, the black snakes in the lawn were like, the black snakes in the lawn were like, okay, don't be afraid of us. Like, we are benevolent, but we're going to show you, like, it's so cool that on the last day you got that contrast of, you know, the other snake, like, being harmful and violent. So it was like the dream was using the contrast of the two different kinds of snakes to, like, caution you. It's so cool.
Right. And that was the crazy part, because I could not let go. I was, you know, you get to a point where you're like, okay, what does this dream mean? What does this dream mean? Because this was different from the ones before. So I kept concentrating, thinking, okay, universe, tell me what this means. Tell me what this means. And at the same time, I'm waiting for this snake to show up, because there's no doubt in my mind it's going to show up today. Never thinking that the snake, the color of the snake, represented the cement pillar that the van was going to hit. And like you said, when I realized the significance of the shoulder and the way the man was standing, I was like, oh, God, this thing is that's where it's going to hit him. And that's why it bit. And I remember so vivid in the dream when the teeth kind of raked my skin. It didn't break my skin, but it just kind of raked it to let me know I mean business.
Yeah.
This is really, and my arm just jerking, because that's what really brought me about the dream was my arm jerking. It felt like I was physically jerking. So that's what brought me about this dream. Like, what in the hell? You know, and for me, I don't have a problem with going to the universe going, now look, what was this? So it just kept my mind so captivated that day that it kept my vision in the right place at the right time. You know, and it was like everything so, you know, ties into it. I was very, very unhappy at the position, you know, and I was trying to figure out a way out. But I knew I was supposed to be there for some reason. And that particular day gave me the reason why I endured all the extra I felt that I endured, you know, and put up with the mess. That one moment made everything worth it, just to grab him and know that in that split second I did exactly what I was supposed to do.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that you shared your story with us this evening. Now, this is in the Viberarian Show, and we have run out of time. I believe if people were listening online, they probably are not able to connect anymore. We will be publishing this episode. You can listen to the full rebroadcast later, as well as on the VIberary YouTube channel. And I definitely want to invite you to come out this Sunday to the VIberary Elevation Station, which is happening in East Point, Georgia, at the Cupcakery from 12 to 6 p.m., because Lynn Prime will be available to do dream interpretation and crystal readings during the event. So I think that if you have any stumpers of a dream, something you've been trying to figure out and you're just quite not sure if you're interpreting it right and you don't want to get bit by a snake, you know, then definitely stop by and spend some time getting a reading at the Elevation Station. And, ladies, I definitely will have you back on for another show. The hour goes by so quickly when you're talking about interesting things. So we have some upcoming episodes of the Viberarian Show. We're going to talk about the medicine journey, past lives and past life regressions, the Akashic Records. I've got some friends who are experts at Akashic Record reading, and I'm really excited to have them on. And a number of topics are coming up. And this Tuesday, every Tuesday is the Psychic Inside Show. And my belief is that everybody is a psychic. You just may not recognize it. So every week I interview people about their journey into discovering their gifts and abilities. And my guest this week is going to be Kelly Lynn Prime, so we can learn a little bit more about you as an empath, psychic, and your journey into that. On Tuesday evening, same phone number, same Blog Talk Radio channel on the VIberary Radio Network from 9 to 11 p.m. on this Tuesday coming up. So I want to thank both of you for 2 hours. It goes by quick. It's easy. It's awesome. But I want to thank both of you for coming on. Kelly, thank you for being co-panelists this evening and for sharing your dream. I appreciate that snake story. I'm going to sign off now. This has been the Viberarian Show, and my name is Joelle. I wish that you have all of the bountiful blessings that you can possibly hold in this next week, and that you're filled with love and light. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Yes.